currently my media query doesn't fix my problems. It just makes the background go red. So at the moment it goes red, but how does it fix the layout? So what is actually causing the problem with the layout at the moment? So what we need to quickly look at is the rest of our code. If I scroll up the page, you might notice right near the top, we have our page is a fixed width. It's always going to be this 1120 pixels wide. And that's because we said this is our grid system on desktop. It's kind of what we did here. We picked out how wide this was, and then we said, this is the page size. What we want to do instead is change this over time. Now, it's something that CSS is really good at because it's built to be responsive. So what we're going to do is actually overwrite this width. Now, where do we want to overwrite this width? So what we want to say is, well, when we get here roughly, when it starts to break, then we want it to not have this scroll going at the bottom of the page. So let's do that first. So when this page breaks is 1120, because that's when the width starts to break. So what we're going to do is, instead of this being background color red and this at 600, let's put in some proper numbers. So where does this break? So this breaks not at 600, it actually breaks at 1120 pixels. So we can just see if this breaks at the right place now with this background color red. So red is when it breaks. This is when I want to start changing things. What do I want to change? Well, I don't want my width of the page to change. I kind of want it to flow with the rest of the page. So instead of background color red, I'm going to get rid of this for now. I'm going to change the width of this page to be automatic. Let's just make it whatever it should be, fill in the rest of the gap. So now what we should see is, if I go down to here and I start making the page go smaller, notice how the grid further down on this page gets a bit more flexible. Things are changing dependent on the page now. There's still a lot of things breaking. We'll come and fix that a little bit later. But this is not having this page scroll anymore. Now, there's still other problems here, like we don't have any kind of gutters around the edges. How do we fix that? So how do I move this away from the edge of the page? What I'm going to do here is add some margin. So underneath here, I'm going to say, well, how much do we want on the left and right? Well, here what I'm going to say is margin. I still want to keep the things from above. So let's just check what they were. They were 80, auto, 48, auto. So let's keep them in place. 80, auto. We're going to change this in a sec. 48, auto. So this is overwriting, but overwriting with exactly the same thing. What I want to do here is the automatic margins that we're moving things inside should now be a fixed distance. I always want this to now be a fixed distance from the edge. So what is the fixed distance here? Well, let's make this something like, well, our grid, if you remember from before, let's turn it on, let's have a quick look, was 24. We upped it to 32. So maybe we do 32 or maybe double 32 here to make it even more space. So let's say this is 64 and 64. Let's try this. So let's see, now we have this distance from the edge. This is always 64, but our grid in between flows. But you might notice one little thing. So when I make it go here, it snaps into position. Now, why does it snap into position? Well, it's because I hit exactly where the grid should go. So as soon as I hit 1120, this then pushes in. So we might want to give it a bit more space to have this a bit more natural. How do I do that? Well, what I want to do is move this point a little bit further up in my media query. So where about there instead, I actually want to change things. So to do this, what do I need to account for? Well, what I want to do is account for these extra 64 on each side. So just doing a little bit of math in my calculator, I'm going to add 64 to both sides. So what my media query should do is account for these two things. And this is the final number. So my media query is actually going to be a little bit bigger than 1120. It's going to be, just what I calculated from before, 1248. So this feels a lot more fluid now. So now if I scroll down, this will fix into position at the right place, but this feels a little bit more natural now. So we've got the start of media queries in here, starting to kind of make our page look a little bit more natural. Still a lot of things to fix, no worries, we'll talk about that along the way, but we fixed the main problem with our layout. This is now a responsive design.